Hi everyone, welcome back to Outside Xbox here at Gamescom 2016. We've just got out of seeing Prey, which we reckon is Dead Space meets Dishonored. Here's why. Alright, so the first reason is probably the story. So tell us a bit about the story, Mike.
Right, so one of the main elements that is similar to Dead Space is the fact that you are on this sort of derelict ship which has been invaded by shape-shifting aliens.
Well, it's a space station called Talos 1,
right,
which is in orbit around the moon.
Mm-hmm.
But you wake up, turns out that Talos 1 has been overrun by hostile aliens who will want to eat your face and other parts of your body.
What is it about aliens? They always want to eat your face.
Yeah, I don't know, man. They're into that. I don't know.
I was getting also sort of alien isolation vibes, you know, a floating space station. All the inhabitants have been killed or horribly maimed.
Yeah.
And you're sort of piecing through the wreckage to find out what's happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of that Dead Space style storytelling where you'll see like a bloody trail leading to a shattered doorway, and you're like,
I love that a bloody trail can be storytelling, but it absolutely can.
You're like, I'm gonna have to go and investigate what's behind that, aren't I? And the thing that made all that blood come out of that person is gonna do that to me as well.
Try and make all that blood come out of you.
Also very Dead Space is the fact that you can go outside of the space station into the ZeroG on the outside of the ship.
The entire place is a sort of explorable space. It's a kind of almost open world type thing.
Yeah, apparently it's all open to you from the start. I mean, there'll be locked doors and things, but you can explore pretty much the whole thing from the start.
Yeah, and one of the ways you'll be able to get around to your missions is by going outside into sort of ZeroG, and it's really atmospheric. You know, the visor comes down, as you can see, it's very sort of triangular, which seems impractical to me.
Unnecessarily triangular, I say. That's a lot of triangles.
But the visor comes down, you're floating around in ZeroG, and I'm hoping for some good sort of ZeroG scares as well. That'd be quite cool.
Yeah, so that's not just something you can do straight away. Like, you have to get the requisite parts for your spacesuit. You needed like a jetpack to be able to move around. So it's that's kind of one of your objectives is getting the ability to move around. It'll have that sort of, I think, Metroidvania feel where there are parts that you can't reach until you've got the right equipment.
Absolutely.
And then you come back and you can go through areas that open up new areas to you as you get more stuff.
I hope it lets you just go out without the jetpack and you just drift off to oblivion.
That's it. You just
slowly suffocating your space helmet.
That's the end of the game. Yeah, canonically the end of the game. So the enemies that we saw in the game, the monsters, they also seemed to have quite a Dead Space flavour to them.
Yeah, right, sort of shape-shifting, changing form, and sort of also a lot of spiky, pointy things.
Yeah, like spidery things with knives for arms.
Yeah.
A lot of that going on. The Mimic was one of the enemies that we saw, and they can, like you say, shape-shift into ordinary household objects.
Yeah.
So the demo they were showing us, the guy was like shooting a lot of bins because he thought they might
be mimics.
The alien might have turned into a pedal bin.
It's brilliant though, because you're so used to just ignoring the kind of rubbish that's strewn around games set in abandoned space stations or in BioShock and things like that, and actually it's never going to get old. Something that you have just completely disregarded, turning into a monster and like scuttling off.
Yeah,
into
suddenly a
the
pedal bin's running at you, like flapping its lid.
It's very, very strange.
Furiously.
Yeah, we weren't actually physically playing it, but even just watching it, I was like, oh wow, okay, that's an alien. They're kind of like almost sort of animated smoke kind of thing. They're sort of
can like dissipate and reform.
Yeah, it's very unnerving, and I wonder whether actually we've seen a lot of them, forming as inanimate objects. I wonder whether they'll be able to mimic people as well, or other kind of animals or creatures.
Yeah, and they were using one of the weapons called it was like a glue gun, which fired a kind of sticky.
Oh, the glue gun was amazing.
Yeah, it had a load of uses. You could use it to create platforms that you could jump on. You could use it to block pipes that are spewing steam. But you could also use it to freeze the shape shifters.
Yeah,
mimics.
exactly. Yeah.
So you could like hold them fast in place and then hit them with your artillery.
Yeah, visually it's sort of like that riot foam stuff that they sort of trial.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's really novel. It could be this game's like gravity gun.
Okay, so moving on to some of the ways it's like Dishonored, you have powers similar to the Outsiders gifts in Dishonored, but here they're called neuromods.
Right.
So there are various human neuromods, there are various alien neuromods that you can use. I think this is kind of linked into the experiments that were being done on Morgan U.
Right, so the main power that the aliens seem to have, you also have. And there's a brilliant moment where if there's an object nearby, you can like look at it and turn into that object. So in the demo, the guy just turned into a coffee mug, and you can kind of roll around as the coffee mug and roll through like small gaps and things.
Yeah, he rolled like off a counter onto the floor and didn't shatter, which I thought, that should have been like the end of the game right there. You just shatter into a load of ceramic pieces and that's it.
is it really necessary to be a coffee mug to do that? Can you not just use that same power of molecular regeneration to just make yourself smaller, maybe?
No, it's got to be a coffee. It literally has to be a coffee mug. There's no other way. He can only do one thing: is coffee mugs.
I did find myself wondering whether I could play the entire game switching back and forth between a coffee mug. Yeah.
That would be amazing. Also similar to Dishonored is the fact that you can use your powers together. You can sort of chain them together. So one of the examples that we saw was using the Mimic ability to turn into one of the grenades that you use as a weapon, but then also using the kinetic charge neuromod, which is a kind of focused energy blast, to then launch yourself into the air. So you're a small thing that can be launched by a kinetic blast. You launch yourself up to a higher platform, and then you turn back into Morgan, and you're on the higher platform that you couldn't reach before.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of the ability to turn into a fish in Dishonored and stuff. It's one of those weird kind of, very strange traversal mechanisms that you wouldn't necessarily have thought of.
So quite similar to Dead Space and Dishonored, but it also reminded us of another game as well, didn't it?
Yes, and that was BioShock.
Yeah.
Rapture, one of the great sort of video game environments, densely decorated, sort of believable structure, and that's what we've got here. We've got those big sort of panel windows where you can see the kind of moon that the space station's orbiting out there. So it's got that kind of that heritage from BioShock, the same sort of thing that Alien Isolation tapped into, this kind of a believable society that has collapsed.
Yeah, also for quite a lot of the demo before the person who was playing picked up a firearm, they were using a wrench. It was a space wrench. So it looked a bit sci-fi, but it was definitely a wrench, and that can't be a coincidence, right? If you give your character a wrench, you're definitely making a reference these days.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's going to scratch a lot of the same itches.
Good morning, Morgan. You're not going to like what I have to say next.
All right, so that was Prey 2 here on the show floor at Gamescom 2016. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and we will see you next time on Outside Xbox.
Just in the final cutscene as the space station blows up and you're flying out of the spaceship, just a coffee mug on the.
Yeah, and someone fills you with boiling hot coffee and takes a sip. Okay, canonically that is the end of Prey 2. If we've spoiled it, apologies.